History repeats itself as Senegal once again disappoints the West African states, preventing them from the possible the formation of West African Federation. Now, why do I say this? Please tune in and I will reveal everything by bringing you a historical analysis of a comparison between the 1960 and 2024. Hello, I am Mahlet Ayele, your host at Connect Africa, bringing you the latest from the continent, and particularly as we follow closely what's happening in the Sahel region of West Africa. Now, why do we say in this video, I'm going to look at 3 or 4 points. First of all, why do we say that history repeats itself? How did Senegal disappointed, or how did Senegal become the weak link of a possible or the greater West African Federation, which is a pan-African one? Number 3, I will give you a comparison between Senegal, the two leaders, or a comparison between what happened in 1960 during this West African Federation formation, and then what happened now in our time in 2024. So those are the things I am going to look at. Now, why do I say history repeats itself? As Senegal continues to be a weak link in this Pan-African, West African Federation formation. Now, what happened in the 1960s? This is, I would like to share with you this. Now, look, if you look at this now, this is Mali, Senegal. Here we have here Burkina Faso and Niger. Now, in 1960, actually, there was an attempt, or there was a Mali federation. It's 4 countries coming together and forming this federation called Mali Federation. And it consists of Mali, Senegal, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Here you see also other countries, but just for now, stay with me with this one. And it was supposed to extend with other countries. Now, in this formation, what happened is that immediately Niger and Burkina Faso fell out, okay, before it's even formed. This was in June 1960. So we are left with 2 countries now, Mali and Senegal. Now, Mali at that time was called the French Sudan, or the French Sudan Republic, because there is a Sudan, the Greater Sudan, here somewhere in East Africa, in the northeastern Africa, which is occupied by British. And then you have here in the West Africa, where the French occupied, and they call it the French Sudan. As you know, they used to call and give whatever they want to the names of the rivers, the lakes, the places, the countries, as opposed to what our ancestors have been calling the place. So Mali used to be known as the French Sudan. Now, when they got independence in 1959, now this was formed on the motto of the referendum, meaning after they got independent from the colonization of France. Okay, so the 4 countries wanted to form this federation. Niger and Burkina Faso at that time, called also Upper Volta and Dahomey, fell out immediately. The 2 French Sudan, the now Mali, and Senegal formed this federation. Now, this ran for 2 months, okay, for 2 months. And on August 19 or 20 exactly, Senegal fell out. Because of that, now when they unite this federation, they dropped the name of course, the French Sudan, and it became, the name became Mali Federation. That was what it is called. So consisting of Mali and Senegal. Now, Senegal, after 2 months, it dropped out. Now, that leads us the second question: what is, of course, this Mali Federation in the greater form, and what led to the fall? Okay, I'm still giving you the historical background. mind you, our main topic is that Senegal being the weak link in the West African Federation formation. Okay, now there used to be this federation, the Mali Federation, in the 1960. What is it in the greater sense? It was actually, as you know, it is the 1960 means it was even before the formation of the Organization of African Unity, which is in the 1963. Okay, so this was the first African attempt in form of regional integration. Forget the whole continental integration or unity, that wasn't even thinkable, as most of the countries was not or were not independent from the colonizers. So this was the first attempt in that regional integration, and it was an attempt, actually one of the first, the most important and independent movement in West Africa before, as I said, before the formation of the Organization of African Unity. It was realized in the 1963. In ECOWAS, much later came in the 1975. So the Mali Federation was formed right after the independence. It was that tangible expression of Pan-Africanism, which consisted of, in its fullness, the Pan-Africanism ideology, because the leaders were that kind. Of course, there is one sell out. Now, the Mali Federation was led by the very Pan-Africanist, the first independence leader after the colonization of Mali, which is Modibo Keita, and later on he becomes also one of the founder of the Organization of African Unity. So Modibo Keita became the president of the Mali Federation. Now Senegal, on its part, has its own leader, which was called the poet. What was his name? Senghor. Okay, Sédar Senghor, Leopold Sédar Senghor. Now, this will lead us now to the third question I'm going to answer you. Why Senegal was the disappointing or the weak link at the time in the 1960s, being being the weak link preventing the formation of this federation. Now, why Senegal? Okay, now there are two leaders. Then the Mali Federation, when the French Sudan nowadays Mali was led by Modibo Keita, and the Senegal one was Sédar Senghor. Okay, now these two figures, although they created this federation, and it was the main leader was Modibo Keita, but later on Sédar Senghor, with his prime minister, what was his name, Mamadou Dia of Senegal, they became completely different in their ideology, and their background, their historical background serves for this, because Mamadou Keita he comes from the school thought of, the Leninist, it's socialism and Pan-Africanism. And Sédar Senghor of the Senegal he is still in his minds of the Western thought electoral democracy or whatever. I mean, watch this word, electoral democracy, and see the now of Senegal and what makes them proud, because now they have elected their leaders through the so-called electoral democracy. But is it really? That's something questionable. But in any case, so Sédar Senghor becoming more different from Mamadou Keita in ideology. One is very Western thought, and he's still in the minds of the French ideology. And the other one, Modibo Keita of the Mali, he was very socialist, okay, and very Pan-Africanist. Then immediately after 2 months of the federation, Senegal said, we separated, and they separated and become independent by their own. So the Mali Federation now becomes only Mali itself, and it continued as Mali. They dropped the name of federation. So it was four in the beginning. It was the Upper Volta at that time, Burkina Faso, and then Niger, and then the French Sudan, now Mali, and then Senegal. The two created the Burkina Faso and Niger. If you tell me why they did not join, I will tell you. It was Ivory Coast. It was Ivory Coast. The leader was called, what was his name? Felix Bogini or Boni, but his first name was Felix. So he was so much into the Western ideology. So they immediately were, he even gathered around others to become anti-Mali Federation. The Mali Federation was very strong, although it was the Senegal and the Mali that formed it, but other Pan-African countries continued to actually create a copy of this party. They have their political party. It was called, I forgot his name, but I will give you in the minute. So they started, the Pan-African countries, they started to create a copy of the replica of this political party in their country, like a branch, okay? So that when they get their independence to follow the same ideology. But this Ivory Coast leader, who was successful to take out Niger and Burkina Faso in the beginning, also creating another party which is anti-federalist to be against the Mali Federation. So after 2 months, Senegal dropped out the federation, and then it was only Mali, and that was the history of Mali Federation. It just had a lifelong of 2 months. Now, fast forward, we come to the 2024. Now, why do I say this is a possible Pan-African West African Federation? By that time, it was Mali Federation. This time, I'm not talking about, don't get me wrong, the ECOWAS. No. ECOWAS is something else. Now, I'm talking about the new West African Federation, which is based on Pan-Africanism, which is the alliance of the Sahel states, which is formed by Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Who do we have now? These 3 countries, okay? Now, if you now compare and contrast, we have Modibo Keita of the Zen Mali, and then the Zen the Senegal, Cedar Segor. Now we have, when we come to this politics of 2024, you have the Mali or the Burkina Faso of people like Ibrahim Traore, Colonel Assimi Goita, and the Niger of General Abdurrahman Tihiani, and then versus the Senegal of Diomaye Faye. Now, yesterday and the day before yesterday, we have been following and reporting to you closely his visit to Burkina Faso and Mali. Now, he revealed that, first of all, he was not there as a mediator of ECOWAS, and he said clearly in Mali, Senegal is not. This is his words, okay? These are his words. Senegal is not in the mood of joining the Sahel Alliance states for whatever reason, which he did not make it clear, but we all know, because now this guy is, if you talk to the Senegalese people, who are the supporter of, we know that when they were campaigning, they were so Pan-Africans, they were supporter of Ibrahim Traore, Assimi Goita of Mali, and others, and we thought Senegal immediately will join the Sahel Alliance, but it didn't, because the way it came to power is again the so-called, electoral democracy, the Western ideology. That's exactly why Cedar Segor in 1916 was separated from the Modibo Keita Mali. And this is exactly the same reason for Diomaye to separate himself from the Sahel Alliance states. Okay, now they came, according to them, the mainstream and others, through a coup, but these countries have a revolution. That's what happened. Now, so he wants to separate himself. So that so-called electoral democracy allows for him now to play, to continue as a partner, both for the West, and then also for his African counterparts, ECOWAS and others. Okay, so he wants to play that kind of fair play, to be neutral by being loyal to the West and by being loyal here to ECOWAS, but not really to his revolutionary Pan-African leaders. Yes, his visit to the Sahel states has made a big difference. I'm not completely losing a hope on Diomaye Faye, but you can see Senegal's historical background is really being played again in 2024. And you will not be surprised why Senegal took a U-turn from what we expected, that Pan-Africanism, that from what they have been advocating during their election campaign. They just took a turn and wanted to play it slowly, fairly, neutrally, whatever name you give it. Okay, so I just wanted to bring this historical background, so that, because it's very remarkable, very interesting. These are all, I always like to bring historical analysis because it gives us a better understanding. And, you will see that how those countries are still stick to their ideology in the past. Now, Senegal is really confusing us. As much as they say that they want to break away from their colonial past by being anti-colonialism, by being anti-neocolonialism, but at the same time, they want to, these are his words during his inaugurational speech, at the same time, they want to continue with their partners outside of Africa, inside Africa. Okay, so, but it's a very contradicting phrase, because, or contradicting game for Senegal to play, because one do not want you to do the other, because you cannot be a loyal partner to the West by being a supporter of your people in Mali, and they don't want you to associate yourself with these Pan-African leaders in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Okay, they just want you totally to, even right now, they are watching closely and assessing Diomaye Faye, his steps, what he did there. It's very brotherly. He calls him a brother. He congratulated the people of Mali, the people of Burkina Faso. He acknowledged their struggle, and the leaders as well. But he also said, okay, Senegal, you know what? Senegal is not joining now the Sahel Alliance. He made it clear very publicly. He should have just kept quiet. But that, I think that question came from the journalists. It's a very thin line that they are trying to walk. But let us know in the comment section, what do you think of this very striking play of Senegal, history repeating itself in the 1960s, and now Senegal disappointing, being that weak link in the possible formation of a Pan-African West African Federation. But I call it now, they call it the Sahel Alliance. I'll just call it a Pan-African West African Federation. At that time, it dropped out in the 1960s because they were in their Western ideology. This time also, they want to drop out because they think that they came through electoral democracy. They can play both, but it's a very dangerous game to play. Thank you again for tuning in. Let us know in the comment section, what do you think of this? Again, I'm not giving up hope on Diomaye Faye, but I cannot help but to bring you the similarities, very, very striking. Okay, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that so far. If you like what we bring you here, please give it a like and share the video with others. Let's empower each other with information and knowledge. Please, you can support our channel through our PayPal account, which is in the description section. That will help us to be here more often. Thanks again, and I will see you on the next one. It's a bye-bye for me for now.